Good evening and welcome to the Monday, 30th of December, Xenia City Council meeting. We are ready to begin this evening, and we will first have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Actually, prayer.
We're going to have prayer. I'm going to pray.
You're going to pray? Thank you very much. The Vice President will pray. If you would rise with me, please, for the invocation pledge.
Heavenly Father, we come to you on this, the last official meeting of the year, the last meeting with our President, Mike Engel, and Councilman Dale Louderback, and Councilman Will Urchel. And we first want to thank you for their service. Thank you for the jobs that they have done on this council. We'll more appropriately recognize them later. But Lord, we just pray that you would give us wisdom, give us compassion, give us courage to do what we need to do for the benefit of our citizens. Help us to remember that we are the city of hospitality. Help us to remember that what we do needs to bring glory to you, and just give us patience in dealing with each other and with the issues that we must deal with. And we pray this in Jesus' matchless name. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. May I have roll call, please?
Vice President Wallace.
Here.
Councilman Urschel.
Here.
Councilman Louderback.
Here.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilman Dean.
Here.
Mayor Mays.
Here.
President Engel.
Here. This time, ask for a motion for approval of minutes, December 12th, 2019, our regular session, please.
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved by Councilman Louderback, second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Smith. Any discussion or question on the motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Abstain.
Councilman Urschel.
Yes.
Councilman Louderback.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Now a motion, please, for the December 12th, 2019 special session.
So moved.
Moved by the mayor, second, please.
A second.
Seconded by Councilman Smith. Any discussion or question on this set of minutes, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Abstain.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Louderback.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion
Mr.
carried.
President,
Yes.
we have a room full of constituents tonight, and I think I've always thought that when we abstain, we ought to explain it.
Yeah.
I was absent at the last meeting, so I'm not in a position to vote on those minutes, so that's why I'm abstaining.
Thank you. We now have an opportunity for special presentations. First, a proclamation, reading of proclamation for outgoing Councilman Will Urschel.
Would you like me to turn it down? Or did you want me to?
Go right ahead, ma'am.
All right. Be it proclaimed. Whereas William Urschel has been a resident of the city of Xenia for 35 years. He is married to Kim, and they are the proud parents of 3 children who gave them 4 grandchildren. And whereas Mr. Urschel graduated from MIT with degrees in electrical engineering and computer science. He is a veteran of the United States Air Force. After 34 years of service, he retired from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where he held positions including program manager, $100 million weapon systems, and technical director for Air Force fighter and bomber programs, to most recently, technical director for Air Force Material Command. And whereas, for over 3 decades, he has actively served the Xenia community in many ways, including but not limited to the following: Xenia Juvenile Court, Xenia Cleft Youth Center, Xenia Christian School, Xenia Legacy Center, Xenia Area Association of Churches and Ministries, Interfaith Hospitality Network, Bridges of Hope, Xenia Youth Recreation Club, Xenia Soccer Club, and Emmanuel Baptist Church in Xenia. And he is currently serving as Professor of Cybersecurity at George Mason University in Washington, D.C., and pastor at Emmanuel Baptist Church, where he regularly volunteers to provide nourishment and prayer for local families in need through God's Grace Mobile Food Pantry. And whereas his values include service to others, integrity, honesty, and excellence in all he does, and humbleness before God, and with those values in mind, he was elected to City Council on November 6, 2018 to fill the remaining year of a vacated term, which is due to expire on December 31st, 2019. And whereas, as City Councilman, Mr. Urschel has championed several causes, including street maintenance and rehabilitation, as well as homelessness and drug addiction that includes partnering with local faith community and proper social services. And he encourages business and job growth and investment in education for vocational and professional jobs, and is committed to making the city as attractive as possible so Xenia is the community of choice for those relocating to this area over the coming years to fill the up to 10,000 anticipated job vacancies at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And whereas Mr. Urschel has enriched the lives of everyone who knows him, he is loved and respected by his family and friends, community and church members, and the City of Xenia elected officials and staff, and he is willing to talk with any Xenia citizen over a cup of coffee in an effort to bring about positive change. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Xenia City Council, appointed officials, and city staff, I, Sarah J. Mays, Mayor for the City of Xenia, Ohio, hereby proclaim Monday, December 30th, 2019, as William Urschel Day in the City of Xenia, and with great admiration and appreciation his contributions for the betterment of the City of Xenia for the past 30 years, I ask that you join me in recognizing him for his enthusiastic and tireless public and community service.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just humbled by that. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. You forgive my tears. I've known Will since I was a child and have babysat his kids and grown up around him, and he's been my pastor and friend for many years.
Next
Okay.
item is a bit odd for me to introduce. If you would
How about I
do so,
introduce
please.
this? Resolution 2019-NN, appreciation for outgoing Councilman Michael D. Engel in recognition of his valuable service to the City of Xenia. Would anyone care to introduce this?
I will introduce this.
Thank you, sir.
Next item is Resolution 2019-00, appreciation for outgoing Councilman Dale Louderback in recognition of his valuable service to the City of Xenia. Have an introduction from one of my colleagues, please.
I would like to introduce this.
Thank you. Introduced by the mayor.
You're not going to read this?
At this time, we are not going to read these due to both of our council members have asked that we not read these in its entirety, but I would like to take a moment to recognize both of their service and faithful service to this community. Both of these gentlemen have served faithfully, and they have been advocates for this community. They've always been available for people to call and talk to. They have fought hard for the city, and I would like to take a moment to thank them.
Thank you very much.
I'll let you have your meeting back.
This time, we have an opportunity for audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the Xenia City Council, please feel free to do so. We do have a rather packed house this evening. If you wish to do so, please step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 2 to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Mark Jarvis. I live at 715 Mount Vernon Drive. I just want to take this opportunity to thank my friend Dale Lauderback. He's a very tireless councilman who's worked very hard for the city of Xenia, and he continues to do for the city of Xenia and the taxpayers. And I'll add a lot more to say, but I think I'm just going to say that and leave it at that. But I just want to thank him for his service. Thank you.
Anyone else care to address the Xenia City Council at this time, please? Seeing none, we will move to public hearings, or excuse me, moving to old business. We have no old business items. We'll move to public hearings. First one is ordinance 2019-25, a second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Xenia, Ohio to rezone 65 South Progress Drive from PUD, Planned Unit Development, to B1, Convenience Business District. I will at this time open the public hearing and invite anyone wishing to speak for this rezoning to step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 2 to 3 minutes, please.
All right, thank you very much. Congratulations to the councilman retiring from this duty here. My name is Jerry Sharkey, 6270 North State Route 48 in Lebanon, Ohio. I'm a commercial real estate broker. Have offices in Springboro and Loveland, and I represent the owners of this property that we're talking about. It's currently on the, so it's currently on the corner of South Progress and Main, across the street from the Circle K there. Currently PUD, which really limits us to just office, and we're asking for the change to be able to actually possibly have some retail in there also. We don't have any firm plans at this time, but it does give us, opens up the opportunity, being on a corner and being adjacent to all of the other retail there. So we're asking for that consideration of the council today, and we appreciate the consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak for the rezoning, please? Seeing no one else come forward, anyone wishing to speak against this particular rezoning, please step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 2 to 3 minutes, please. Seeing no one come forward, anyone wishing to speak neither for nor against, but on the subject of this rezoning, step to the podium, please. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing. I had introduced this at our last meeting, and I will move for its passage at this time. May I have a second, please?
So moved.
Seconded by the Vice President. Any discussion or question on the motion? Council?
I need to defer to the Madam Law Director. I work in this building, so I thought I should abstain. Do you think that would be appropriate?
You work in the building at 65 South?
Yes.
Yes, sir, I
Yeah,
would abstain.
so I will be
correct.
abstaining. Thank you.
Any other discussion or question, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Urschel,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Abstain.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is ordinance 2019-26, also a second reading, amending the Timber Ridge PUD by allowing a nursing home on 13.5 undeveloped acres by allowing single-family residential development on 21.25 undeveloped acres and existed plotted lots, and by adopting certain additional development standards, originally introduced by Councilman Urschel. I will open the public hearing at this point in time and invite anyone wishing to speak for this particular rezoning to step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 2 to 3 minutes, please.
Hi, my name is Greg Miller, 12500 Reed Hartman Highway, Cincinnati, Ohio. I appreciate the time this evening. We are the developer operator. I think there was some confusion on. We operate 7 facilities in the greater Cincinnati area. Currently, our company is the Healthcare Management Group. In the last 10 years, we've opened what we consider to be facilities for the future, which include all private rooms, private showers, double beds, Tempur-Pedic mattresses, with state-of-the-art rehab. This is the facility we're proposing to bring to the city of Xenia. We expect to create over 125 jobs with an expected payroll of $4.5 million, which would generate payroll taxes in excess of $100,000 per year. The investment in the Xenia area would be over $12 million with the building and the real estate associated. When we come into a community, the other 2 facilities we built, one was in Middletown, one was in Green Township. The other facilities are in Sycamore Township in Cincinnati, Loveland, Ohio, and we've purchased some of those, so we haven't developed them. We become part of the community. We've become engaged with the Chamber of Commerce. We've constructed parks, basketball courts, gymnasiums. We've built baseball fields in communities. For 45 years, we've delivered Thanksgiving meals, each of our buildings, to the community at large. We aren't just here to operate a facility and live out of state, out of the city. We become part of the community. Similarly, we propose to become a good neighbor of the city of Xenia as well. We learned during the council's first reading of ordinance 201926 on December 12th that there is a concern with the EMS utilization in the city of Xenia, and that by bringing this facility here, that will increase the utilization further. I cannot stand here today and say it would not, but I can tell you that the facility that we are proposing our short-term stays. We measure all of our rehospitalizations, and I have a copy of this for each of you. At the facilities in Middletown, we have a 16% rehospitalization rate. In Green Township, it's 13%. The local facilities here in Xenia are 36%, one is 28%, and one is 17%. I think some of the communities that are currently operating are utilizing your EMS inappropriately. Before the meeting, I talked to some people. They're calling if people are hitting the floor. I mean, you call 911 if someone is unresponsive, dying, and it needs to be sent on an ambulance, not because you don't have staff or personnel in the building to take care of the people. We also will be catering to a younger population that will be having knees, hips, orthopedic surgeries, that will be coming to the facility otherwise healthy, there for a couple weeks, returning home. So it's a different type of facility. We will have some long-term people, but our market is about 50, 60, 40 of people returning to home. We are happy to discuss coming up with a creative way to fund part of the EMS issue. I realize it seems to be a citywide problem, but the timing seems to be the perfect storm where you're having a task force investigating all of the EMS issues and how to handle it. We're willing to participate and actively help with that process. In terms of the Timber Ridge neighborhood, I've talked to several people. I don't think I've satisfied everybody. I haven't heard from everybody. We have agreed to create a buffer where the lots backing up to the current neighborhood will be deeded over to the neighborhood. We will not connect any street to the current streets. That street will end in that neighborhood, so there won't be any through traffic coming through. And I mean, I think it's important to know that right now, someone could come in there and build 30 single-family homes, connect the street, and I don't even think they'd have to come before the council to do that. And there's no restriction on quality of home, type of home. No one's done that in almost 30 years, so I wouldn't expect that to all of a sudden happen. I think we provide the best buffer for that neighborhood from future development intruding into their space. I've also been in contact with the Elmcroft Assisted Living Center. They have indicated that they're sending a lot of local Xenia residents, they're an assisted living center, out of the city to neighboring communities, Fairborn, Dayton, and Beaver Creek, for care when their health declines. We had them out to our facility in Middletown, which I'd invite anybody here, anyone in the neighborhood, out to see what we had to offer, and it's something that they assured me Xenia does not have to offer currently right now. I've also worked on a plan, well, I already said that. I kindly ask that we either have the motion approved with some conditions that we come up with for the EMS in the neighborhood, buffering, or tabled so that we can go back and work on ways to get what everyone can agree to would be a positive for the city of Xenia, because at the end of the day, we aren't coming here as to intrude in your community. We're coming here to be a part of your community and provide services that we believe are needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else wish to come and speak for this particular rezoning? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against this particular rezoning, please step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 2 to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Ron Taylor. I live at 2461 Ridge Road. I have been a resident of Timber Ridge for almost 30 years. I have been actively involved in the history of Timber Ridge. I played a part in stopping the illegal mining of Timber Ridge by the previous developer. I spoke in opposition to a request for an assisted living over 20 years ago. That request was denied by the city because Timber Ridge was always intended for single home dwellings. On the Monday prior to Thanksgiving, the residents of Timber Ridge received a mailer from a new developer with the intention of building a 95,000 square foot nursing home on Timber Ridge development property. 2 days later, the day before Thanksgiving, the Xenia Planning and Zoning Commission sent us a notice of a meeting to take place on December the 5th to consider this new facility. The residents of Timber Ridge had no idea of this invasion of our development. Many of us spoke at that meeting. The city planner went down his checklist in approval for this plan. He made a comment to the fact that he did not think this would affect property values, even though this was only an opinion. The Planning and Zoning Commission rubber stamped this recommendation of the planner with little dissent from the board. Interestingly, no significant comments were made of the EMS crisis in Xenia. Since that meeting, a number of residents have reached out to the mayor and to the members of the city commission. You have all heard our concerns. The EMS situation remains. I know you all are aware of this issue. But beyond this, I want you all to remember that all of Timber Ridge is intended for single home units. We bought our lots, we built our homes with this commitment in mind. A 95,000 square foot nursing home the size of a Home Depot was not part of the intention of this development. The city commission agreed with us 20 years ago. I appreciate your consideration in this most personal matter and trust that you will all use your good judgment for the betterment of Xenia. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against, please step to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Howard Horseman, 2428 Ridge Road. I've been a resident of the neighborhood about 10 years, so I can't talk to all the history like Dr. Taylor can. However, I am recently retired, and I do have an interest in the neighborhood. I would like to address the perception that there's a lack of interest in single home development in that neighborhood. I've recently retired this year, so I've had the opportunity to be around the neighborhood a lot more. And I have seen the considerable increase in traffic through the neighborhood when a property comes up for sale, or when there's even a rumor that there's a property for sale in the neighborhood. And one anecdote is one of the lots, one of the vacant lots in the neighborhood came up for sale, and I had people stopping at my house questioning the vacant lot next to me, which turned out it was the wrong lot, but it's a illustration of the interest that people have in the neighborhood. The developer argues that the fact that there hasn't been a lot of activity in the last 30 years and that there's vacant lots indicates there's not a market for homes. I would argue that the vacant lots that are there in the neighborhood are kept vacant because people bought the lots to keep green space around their homes, or they bought the lots to put a retirement home or to build a home for their retirement years, not because there's not an interest in the neighborhood. It seems to me that if the city encouraged single home developer to come in and develop according to the existing PUD, the homes would sell. To close, I would just refer to the city's own financial analysis that indicates that if we build the nursing home on half of the remaining section and put 30, the revenue from a nursing home and the 30 remaining homes is approximately half the revenue if you just simply developed according to the existing PUD. I would question the assumption that once we put in a nursing home that we could get an additional 30 homes built in there, because I don't think anybody would want one of these in their backyard, a nursing home facility like this in their backyard. So I would like to summarize by urging the council to encourage development with the existing PUD, I think in the long run, the city would be further ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alyssa Varvel, 2495 Ridge Road. We bought our home 4 months ago. We are part of the traffic that he saw come through there. We've watched that neighborhood for 10 years, waiting to be able to afford to A, buy in it, and B, to live in Xenia because we love Xenia, but not in the city and not in Sterling Green because we didn't want a cookie cutter home that was 10 feet, 15, 20 feet from our neighbor. The lot that he is speaking to is a lot next to us that we do intend to buy one day because we like the green space. Our neighbor, Roger, bought his property 3 months before us. The first picture on the listing was deer. The neighborhood is why we bought. There's a similar neighborhood that is going up in, I don't know if it's considered Sugar Creek or Bellbrook, but I don't think it could be Xenia Township, off of Indian Ripple. Those lots are extremely similar to our lots, the lots that have not been sold, and they're selling for $130,000 a piece. Why not keep that here? Why let Bellbrook or Beaver Creek schools have that? Why not us? Why not continue our neighborhood just like the neighborhood off Kinsey is doing? It has sat vacant, or people have owned the lots for years and they're just now developing some newer homes there that match the neighborhood. We love our neighborhood. We would not have bought our home or stayed in Xenia had we not found this home. I agree with Mr. Horstman that if you put a 99-bed nursing home there, people won't buy the lots behind it. I would never buy a home behind a nursing home. You're changing what little home or PUD for housing that is in Xenia that's left to commercial. So what's not to say that those 30 lots that are left after the nursing home doesn't come back up and ask to be a 7-Eleven or another type of medical office building like the premiers that are going up everywhere in Beaver Creek, Middletown, Springboro, Miamisburg. It's gonna come to Xenia too because Kettering is just coming to Xenia as well. Please consider that. We know that the nursing homes are not great in Xenia, but those are things that can be changed. They are not staffed. That is why they have a 36% rate of ambulance calls. We were at YMCA when that gentleman drowned. We are the ones who called 911. We know that there's a problem. When it takes 9 minutes from 2nd Street to get to the YMCA, there's a problem. We know that. This will not help the problem. A new nursing home will not save the old nursing homes. It won't change the fact that there's not the facilities or the utilities to support it. So please take that into consideration. Take into consideration the homes that we cherish, the neighborhoods we cherish, and the fact that we do love our city and continue to try to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against? Please step to the podium.
My name is Kurt Sanders. I live at 2485 Ridge Road, also in Timberwood, and I'd like to just take a minute to also thank all the outgoing councilmen for their tireless efforts that you help balance all the businesses and the residential and the rezoning that happens in the city. I think you've done an excellent job. With that in mind, I think you can tell with this one it's a tough fit. I think the planning committee did a nice job in doing a balance of saying that this facility would fit on the acreage. I think they had mixed thoughts as far as what would happen with the remainder of the residential lots, knowing full well that that does put that owner in a situation where I think they would look at it for possible expansion needs. And then I think we would be back here in another 5 to 6 years trying to wrestle with, they're so constrained in their lot, they need a little more area to come. And I think that's the only passion that I have for our residents is, I'm not sure that we really want to have that facility be landlocked, so to speak. So I was taken by the minutes that I read, and I noticed that the developer, which I want the city to have new businesses, I really do. I know we need the revenue, I know we need the injection of publicity, but I wrestle with, they didn't look at any of the existing plats that the city has to offer that are easier to build on. We don't knock down a bunch of trees that really, this particular plat of land is a ridge, and it is going to cost, the 12 million, quite a bit of that is probably put for the development. If we could find a parcel of land, we could maybe use that apportionment for the EMS solution. So with that, I propose to the council that we either reject this, let the developer come back at a later date, or if we want to table it, that's fine. But I would say at this point, we have quite a few concerns on not only the financial side, but also the residents that we need to take a look at for the city and the residents before we probably go ahead. So thank you so much.
Anyone else wishing to speak against the rezoning, please? Anyone wishing to speak neither for nor against, but on the subject of the rezoning, please step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments to 2 to 3 minutes, please. Seeing no one else come forward, I will ask Councilman Urschel, do you wish to move this for a vote?
Yes, I do.
Moved by Councilman Urschel for a vote. Second, please.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to move that we table this issue and see if a resolution can be reached between the community and the developer, and see if there's possibly a way that we can move forward and satisfy the needs of both the community and the developer. I'd love to see this development in Xenia, and it's contiguous to Elmcroft. It's already a rehab facility there in the immediate neighborhood. But bottom line is there are some issues, legitimate issues that the community has, and I'd like to see if we can resolve them. So my motion would be to table.
Councilman.
If I can, my mind's already made up. Several reasons. The two, EMS, I don't know if the citizens in this city know, we have a serious EMS problem. The developer said he projected 60 calls to the facility. Next door, Elmcroft, to date, and Jared, if you can bring me up to date, there was 169 calls. We have a serious problem with our EMS, and with another facility, we can't handle it. Number one, EMS. Number two, financially. When you look at it on the surface, people say 125 jobs. 125 jobs, are they good paying jobs? But at the end of the day, after the bottom line, taxes and everything else, it's $21,000 plus to the city of Xenia if they build 30 houses. It's a no-brainer. It's not financially feasible. And as far as I'm concerned, the EMS problem. So I would be voting against it, and I would like to vote on the issue tonight.
Well, the two issues we have right now, Councilman, are we have a motion to move forward with this for a up-down vote, or a motion to table. Do you care to make a second?
I would second the up-down vote.
We have a second to take the vote. Point of order, Madam Law Director, we also have a second motion on the table.
The motion to table, just in case I brought Robert.
Very nice.
The motion to table actually is a subsidiary motion. It
Okay.
takes precedence
That's what I thought.
over the main question.
So-
So the motion to table actually needs to be put to question if it's seconded before the principal motion.
Is there a motion to second the motion to table? I actually will make that second. And the reason I will make that second is I also have very strong feelings about the issue. But I won't be here in January. And 2/3 of this end of the table will not be here in January. And I believe this is something that perhaps is due some additional conversation with planning and zoning, with the city, with other plats that are available, a full discussion with the affected residents. I take great satisfaction that the vice president brought that to our attention this evening, as I had been considering such a motion in the week leading up to this particular meeting. So at this point in time, we have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion on this motion? Yes.
You know, I've been on this council, this is my 12th year, I've never ran away from a battle. I've talked to all the citizens on Ridge Road, and I put great faith in what they don't want it, and I don't want it. It doesn't not make good sense why we're tabling this and not going forward. And I don't know. So that, I mean, I just don't understand.
Mike, if I could comment as well,
Please.
too. I think we have a deficiency in Xenia of quality nursing facilities currently. And I chose that word very carefully, the word quality. We have a number of nursing facilities, but I don't think we have any at the level of quality of what these folks are proposing. However, the proposal that's before us, I think was going to require some fairly substantial change, and even, you know, the concerns we have from the EMS, is this appropriate? And I appreciate what the residents have said, that you know, in terms of selecting one of the two PUDs that we have in the city that are in this you know, size range and targeting a certain group of folks, to reduce that lot count size at this point without really understanding why we'd be doing that, and then understanding also how we would address the existing facilities and how this would either complement or you know, replace some of those. There's a lot of potentials with that. Once again, there's why this particular location versus a number of other locations in the city where we have vacant nursing homes standing right now, and so Mike, I hear you that the three of us are leaving, but I also think that it'd be better for the developer to go back, address these issues with the city manager and some of the city staff, with the council as well, and come. And my sense is there'll be some changes that are going to need to be proposed, that if we just table this and try and operate, or the new council, it's not going to be me, but the new council coming in, the new council is going to be operating as a de facto zoning commission, trying to address these specific changes. And I really believe that needs to go back to the zoning commission and address this, because those are the folks that really understand the nuts and bolts of our zoning laws. That's why we've entrusted them to do that. We're not looking for the council to be operating at that level anyways. So I don't think it's I mean, I would encourage the developer to hear the things that we've talked about, and I know they've done some earnest work on some of them. I don't think there's been time really to address all the issues, and I don't think there's any reason for us as a city to enter it in haste. And I think it would behoove us to go ahead and vote on the motion that's there right now, which I think, unless I'm missing something, the majority of the council probably could not ever agree with the existing motion the way it's worded, and allow the developer to go back and address these items and repropose back through the zoning commission, either through changes to the existing PUD, looking at alternative sites within the city. And so those are my concerns. I'm with you 100%. Discussion, there's a lot of discussion needs to be had. There's some really golden nuggets here, I believe, for the city. But I think we've already had an introduction of a recommendation. It's been brought, it's been introduced here, and we ought to go ahead and vote on that specific recommendation, and then allow the developer, if they have an alternative strategy, some of which may address zoning issues, some may be agreements with the city in terms of or some may be agreements with residents as well too. But I think that needs to go back and come back as a package, as a brand new set of recommendations. And if it requires, and that may not even require coming back through zoning if there's an alternative site that is already zoned for that, right? And that they could come back through. But I think we ought to go ahead and address the issue at hand and take a vote on that, and then allow them to go ahead and regroup and address the concerns that have been laid out. So that's why I believe we shouldn't just table it, because I think we're giving a problem to the next council that's coming up, and I think we ought to go ahead and address the issue that's been given to us, and then allow the developer to come back. I think we've had a really good opportunity for all of us to understand what the concerns are, and we're gonna have to address all of them, not just a subset of them. We're gonna have to address all of them, and it really ought to come back as a joint recommendation from the developer and the city back to the zoning and council, and I think there's a good opportunity to do that, but I think we ought to vote on the issue at hand.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'll defer to Councilman Smith, since he's
Oh, okay.
chair of the zoning commission.
Well-
But I definitely still want to speak to.
Thank you very much. I have a comment and then I have a question. And I was not at the planning and zoning meeting when this was presented, so I can't speak for it or against it on that basis. However, in my question first to the law director is, if it was tabled, what is the process for this developer? Because he mentioned, oh, we'll just make a couple modifications and work that out. My feeling is it would need to be brought back. The whole process would need to be done over. Am I right there? And
Depending on the modifications that are suggested, if they're significant, if they're substantial, and you feel that planning and zoning commission should look at those again, you as council always have the power to refer it back to a different board. You can refer things to committees, to boards, so you could untable it and refer it back to planning commission if you felt the modifications being suggested were significant enough that it would need to go back and restart that process.
all right, thank you. And then my other comment is, and I don't mean any disrespect, but I agree. I think we need to vote on this tonight. And we've got a room full of people here, the people that are watching, and I can guarantee almost all of you are here because you're not in favor of this. If you're in favor of something, you just let it go the process. But we've got a room full of people, and some of you guys are not comfortable getting up and speaking, and we understand that. But I think there's a lot of passion in this room, and I think there's a lot of people that want to leave Timber Ridge the way it is, and I respect that process. And that comment, and I drive by every day an empty nursing facility that sits on Monroe, and it looks awful. And there's just going to be more of those if we open up another center in our community. To me, a 99-bed facility the size of Home Depot, it's a human warehouse. And I can't speak to the quality of care because I haven't seen that center in operation. But having gone through that last year with my dad in a nursing home, there's a serious issue with nursing homes in our country and how they're run. And I'm not comfortable putting another facility in our community, in our city limits. And if you did and I appreciate the time that you wanted to meet with me beforehand. You said that Greene County shows there's a need for a 99-bed facility, but my question is that a countywide need? Because I don't think it's a city need. I think it's a county need, and then therefore I think you need to look at Beaver Creek or Bellbrook, a higher-end community that can sustain something like this. I just agree. I don't think we need it here, and I'd like to not table it. I'd like to just go ahead and vote the way it was presented in the first place, because that's basically how they want to operate it. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I still would like to proceed with the tabling, simply because it comes to us, everybody's saying, do the way it's considered and the way it's been presented. It's been presented with a recommendation from staff for approval. It's been presented with a recommendation from the planning committee for approval. There are serious questions that the community has that need to be considered, and I think they should be considered. And the reason for the tabling motion, which is the motion at hand, that is the motion at hand, not the presented proposal. So the tabling motion is the motion at hand, and the only way to resolve any of the complaints with this particular proposal is to table it and work on those issues. If they can be resolved, it'll come back to us, and we might move to go forward with it. If it cannot be resolved, it'll come back to us, and we will reject it. The bottom line is, it doesn't kill it entirely, it simply defers it. And as far as I'm concerned, based on what I'm hearing the people say, it definitely has to have some further consideration. And I'm just wanting to see the time made available for them to have that consideration. Whereas if we reject it tonight, and it's something to be said for the fact that 3 new members of council will be sworn in at the next regular session of this body. And I think they should have a say in what we're gonna do, because they were elected by the people in November. And we're right here on the last meeting of this council, and 3 folks will not be here. So anyway,
Just one comment to that, Dr. Wallace. I don't know that I know that came with a recommendation from planning and zoning, but I think the city manager at our last meeting said that there was a mixed position from the city staff. And it was not he was not giving a recommendation of approval. That was not the sense I got at all from the city manager.
well, I missed that conversation with the city manager, but the city manager is absent tonight, so thank you. You've just given another reason why it ought to be tabled until the city manager is present to speak to this body before we actually vote.
So, but I think he did represent the city staff position at the last meeting to us.
Any other discussion or question? My second, by the way, is not necessarily an affirmation of the existing proposal. It's not.
Understand.
But I would desire to send a soft no rather than a hard no back to someone who wishes to develop and bring in, by all accounts, possibly $100,000 in tax revenue. Take that for what it's worth. At this point, we need to take a vote on the tabling motion. Roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Nay.
Councilman Lauterbach?
No,
Councilman Smith?
No.
Councilman Dean?
No.
Mayor Mays?
No.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion failed.
Now, any discussion on the first motion that was presented to move this item forward?
There has, I think.
yeah, I'd just like to reiterate, there is no developer in the state of Ohio or in this country that can financially take care of our EMS problem. I'd like to defer to our assistant city manager. How long have we had this EMS problem? And could you explain to the folks exactly what our problem? We, I understand, are the second highest EMS call volume in Greene County. Is that not correct?
That's probably correct, yes. I mean, our EMS call volume has been growing by at least 5% since 1988 or so. It's unsustainable growth. There's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of things we've been working on, as you guys are all aware. So it's a big financial hurdle
Right.
to the tune of millions of dollars a year.
But this council has been working on this for over a year. It's a serious problem, and the EMS problem's not going away. We're the county seat, and this project is just it's a no-brainer to me. We just financially we can't do it. So and I'd like to put you on the spot. The city manager has said he doesn't support it. Do you?
I would not vote in favor of it, just solely because of the EMS issues we have on the plate. Whether the new nursing home proposed would add more, or, you know, how they could address that, none of that's been discussed, but in its current state,
Sorry to put you on the spot.
You're all right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other
You've never done that
discussion?
before, Danny.
I have never done that.
You really have. That was harsh. Way to go out.
Roll call, please.
So, could I make one last comment, Mike?
Sure.
The EMS volume, about 20% of the total volume, I think, as we went over the numbers, is being utilized by the assisted living and nursing home communities that we currently have. And that's less than 1% of the residents of the city. So we have less than 1% of the residents are using 20%. And we're at the point right now where 90 to 95% of our current call volume is transport for EMS. And the problem we have is that as this continues to grow, it is going to size the staffing of our fire department. And what that means is we've got to ensure, as we're providing transport services, we have reserve services for actual emergencies that are occurring. And that's going to require us to hire additional paramedics, additional staff, additional transport units. And if we look at the rate of growth of this versus the population growth, it's exceeding it by an enormous percent. And that's what we mean by it's unsustainable. So we've just made some changes to our ordinances and our billing cycles. It's going to take us a little while to see how those things settle out. One of the major abusers, if you want to call it that, is our existing assisted living and nursing home facilities, because there is no cost to them to request a transport. And once again, it's not the residents who are requesting a transport, it's the organization that's requesting the transport. And so they basically are addressing their risk at the cost of the city, which is unsustainable at this point. And now, not every organization operates that way within the city. There are some that believe that the last resort ought to be transporting to emergency room, because there's a lot of risks in terms of transport, and there's a lot of risks in the emergency room for elderly patients or patients that have other care. And so we have a few residences that's their understanding, their strategy, but that's not across the board. And the majority are on the other end of the spectrum, which is saying transport first and then resolve things later on. And I'll go back to the quality care, though. I think we desperately need good quality care, and we need to look at the proposed facility and understand how that stacks up against our current ones. But once again, why we'd want it in this particular location versus a number of other locations. And I think it just needs to be a little bit, we need to step back, take a little bit of time, and consider this well. And I just want to let the audience know too, as you said, you got notified at a fairly late date next to the holidays. I don't think any of us on council knew that this was coming up either. And there's two ways really to address these type of issues. One is everyone has the right to come to the zoning commission if they own property to make a recommendation. You can go straight into the zoning commission. But for such a substantial change, I would recommend to the developer that they really need to enter first into the city manager's office and potentially to us as the council and the community, and address the issues and then enter into the zoning commission. I think that's a much more favorable way. If it was just a single one-off issue between a couple of residents to go back to the zoning commission, I understand that. We did one of those a little bit here earlier, but something of this major a change, I think it's got a broad spectrum of things that need to be addressed even before going to the zoning commission.
One thing I would remind council before you vote, the amendment, the ordinance is to approve the amendment. So a vote yes is a vote in favor of approving the amendment. A vote no is a vote against approving the amendment. Just a
Thank you.
reminder.
Any other discussion or question, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
One more time, Annette.
A vote yes is a vote in favor of approving the amendment to the PUD. A vote no is a vote against amending the PUD.
As written.
As written.
I'm a little bit confused too. So I'm against the development, the PUD, so that's no vote.
That would be a no vote.
So I don't know if that helps you or not.
And I'm for it, but I'm not for it tonight, because I think we should have deferred it, and we did not. So I guess I'm obligated, I've been pushed into voting no, and I don't want to. But.
Councilman Urschel?
Nay.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Nay.
Councilman Smith?
No.
Councilman Dean?
No.
Mayor Mays?
No.
President Engel?
No.
The motion failed.
Moving to new business, ordinance 2019-27, an emergency, amending ordinance 2019-24 to provide appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Xenia, Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Council President. This is an agenda item that we bring to the last meeting every year, kind of a housekeeping measure. As you'll see, most of these increases are very minor in nature. Usually it means that something changed in one of the personnel lines throughout the year. Maybe somebody changed their health insurance, something of that nature that created a need for an additional appropriation. In the 7-Eleven fund, the insurance fund, there isn't a significant amount that's being requested there for an appropriation. Those are dollars that will be reimbursed by the stop-loss carrier, so we have to pay the claims up front, expend those dollars, and then we will be reimbursed because we are hitting some of our specific and even aggregate amounts for the insurance. And so we expect that most of that amount that's being requested tonight as an appropriation will be reimbursed by the insurance carrier.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency for this ordinance?
Mr. President, I'll make that motion, but this
Sure.
agenda item says that we're going to receive the ordinance. I don't seem to have it.
It's on.
I've got 2019-27, but not, well, that's it, okay, got you. It was laying here when we got in the meeting.
Correct, yeah, we delivered it tonight. We make sure that we've got all the expenditures posted and that we're confident that everything for the year has been posted before we bring this item to council.
Gotcha.
Moved by the Vice President as an emergency,
A second.
second by Councilman Smith. Discussion or question on the motion, please.
I'm a little bit shocked that I thought everybody came for this motion. What happened to our, I feel really bad for you that you walked out in the middle of it.
Any other discussion or question?
Because I know this is near and dear to you, but it's okay.
Roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Ingles.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item is ordinance 2019-28, also an emergency, providing temporary appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures to the city of Xenia, Ohio through March 31st, 2020, and declaring an emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. Each December, staff requests of council to appropriate a temporary budget, essentially, since the final budget can't really be prepared until the year is ended and we know where our account balances end up. So this appropriation is for a temporary budget and ensues continuity of services until the final budget is passed. The temporary budget it's only for 3 months of pay. The final budget per the charter has to be approved by April 1st. So this is the budget as presented to council, and it's attached here. Staff would recommend City Council pass this as an emergency so that we can continue services beginning January 1st, 2020.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency?
I'll move. Mr.
Moved
President.
by Councilman Dean as an emergency. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by the mayor. Discussion or question on this motion, please. Roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Ingles.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item is ordinance 2019-29, an emergency, amending ordinance 2019-18, which levied special assessments for the purposes of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Xenia, Ohio, in cooperation with the Xenia Energy Special Improvement District, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Council President. I'm sure Council recalls some of the legislation presented to you in August earlier this year. For the ESID, there's a property, specifically 136 West 2nd Street, that most of this was set up for. The property owner has run into some issues with the lender who holds the original mortgage on the property. And so they're trying to work through some of those issues, and it's become clear that those issues are not going to be resolved in time for the debt service to actually be issued, the loan made to the resident, and then for the city to collect the assessments and pay that debt service next year. So they've requested that we delay the scheduled payment for another year. And so what we're requesting tonight is an amendment to the original ordinance so that the property owner won't be assessed those property taxes in 2020, but instead in 2021. It is possible that the whole loan falls through, and then the property owner will have to regroup and figure out what they want to do to try to move forward with the ESID. We're hopeful that they'll be able to work through some of those issues and ultimately that the schedule that we're proposing tonight in this amendment will work, and we'll be able to continue with it by just delaying everything a year. So we're requesting tonight this amendment so that the property owner isn't assessed the dollars and then us hold it for a year without knowing exactly what's going to happen with the project.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency?
I'll move.
Moved by Councilman Urschel as an emergency. Second,
I'll
please.
second it.
Seconded by the Vice President. Discussion or question on this motion, please.
Yeah, I just comment that the, you know, the ESID, I think is going to be a great boon to our community, but this, which will allow commercial entities a very novel way of doing financing for energy improvement, which could be anywhere from, you know, windows to heating to HVAC to insulation. And especially, I had discussions with this, with our downtown business folks after our last meeting. They're very interested in the potential of the ESID and some of the improvements in the downtown area. And I just say that for the folks that are stepping out, you know, with this initial thing on the ESID, they're working really hard to figure out how to make this work for us. And so I think we need to give them some consideration. There's going to be some stops and starts going through this for the very first project, but we need to stay behind this one because there's going to be a whole series of other projects that are going to be coming behind this as well too. So.
Thank you. Any other discussion or question, please? Roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is an administrative motion awarding the bid and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Kletchner and Company for the Innovation Drive Water and Sewer Installation Project. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. On November 14th, council authorized the city manager to execute an agreement with the Greene County Career Center for continued development of their facility. Part of that agreement was for water and sewer services. So on December 18th, the city put out a bid for completion of water and sewer mains to their site. We received 10 responses. The staff recommends we award the bid to the lowest responder, Kelchner, and an amount not to exceed of $516,655.55 for water and sewer main installation.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, to award this bid?
So moved.
Moved by the mayor, seconded by the vice president. Discussion or question on the motion, please. Great low bid, much less than all the rest. Roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item is an administrative motion appointing a volunteer to fill a vacancy on the Board for Recreation, Arts, and Cultural Activities. A member of the Board of Recreation, Arts, and Cultural Activities whose term was due to expire on July 31st, 2020, rendered her resignation effective December 31st, 2019. Outgoing Councilman Will Urschel has expressed an interest in filling this vacancy. Mr. Urschel has volunteered at several BRCA functions, including the annual Easter egg hunt held at Shawnee Park, which is co-sponsored by his church, Emmanuel Baptist. This short-term appointment will give Mr. Urschel an opportunity to determine if he wishes to serve a full 4-year term. If so, reappointment by council will be requested at that time.
I'll move the approval of that, Mr. President.
Moved by the vice president. I will second it. Discussion or question on the motion?
Now, we don't want the mayor to vote on this one, right? After that proclamation and Will Urschel Day and all that.
Looks pretty shady.
I can say.
Roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Abstain.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our final item on the agenda, administrative motion approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $371,393.94. Mr. Finance Director.
I have nothing specifically to note on the bills tonight.
Thank you. Motion, please, to pay our bills.
Move for passage.
Moved by Councilman Smith, second, please.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Discussion or question on the motion, please. Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. This time we have an opportunity for appointed official reports and council comments. Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, just a few things to take note of. You all received coins from the city of Beaver Creek and Beaver Creek Township. Their township administrator and city manager and some staff members stopped by early last week to present the city with 2 proclamations. I have them here. You can pass them down, thanking us for our efforts
Yeah.
with the tornado recovery for the Memorial Day tornadoes that impacted their communities. We had several employees help with the initial recovery for the first few days until they were able to get things up and running again. Also, I just
Jared, can I comment on
Yeah.
on what's on the back of this coin here?
Yeah.
It says, neighbors helping neighbors on that, and that was the appreciation we got from the city of Beaver Creek.
Yeah, it's very nice. Also wanted to mention our shirts. So the hashtag MyXenia has kind of been the adopted slogan for the small business revolution, and Xenia's in the running for that. So hopefully we'll know in the next week or so if we make the next round, and then there'll be a popular vote to be decided by January 15th. So we're coming to the end of that. We'd like to keep the promotion of that strong. So thank you all for wearing shirts tonight. We'd like to mention that the city offices will be closed 3 p.m. on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, opening again on January 2nd, 2020. Also, we've posted on our website and several other social media places. We're looking for a volunteer to serve a 4-year term on the Board of Health for the Greene County Combined Health District. If anyone's interested in that, just reach out to the city manager's office and just trying to find volunteers there. And I just wanted to thank our 3 outgoing council members for all their service to the city of Xenia.
Thank you very much. Anything for our city manager this evening, please?
The Board of Health appointment, is that's not a member of council, that's a member of the community at large?
Correct, a member of the community, yep.
And do we necessarily want someone from the medical community, or just?
Yep, that would, an ideal candidate would be from the city of Xenia with medical experience or background, yep.
Gotcha.
Anything else, please?
Jared, if we wanted to nominate someone to that board, how do we go about doing that?
We'd like to have a candidate selected by January 15th, so if people could submit their letters of interest to Carly French or the city manager's office, we'll bring that to council probably the 2nd meeting in January, and the term starts February 1st, so
Okay.
for 4 years.
Great. I'm going to recommend and also ask Melissa Pollock if she'll submit her name. Melissa and her husband have been longtime Xenia residents, had moved out to Spring Valley for a little bit. They're back here in town. And she's the director of the Five Rivers Health Center, has also been part of the Board of Health here as well, too. And I think she'd be an excellent representative for us from the city to participate in actual. And I think, Jerry, as you and I have talked, we haven't necessarily had a representative from the city municipality up to this point. Is that correct?
We have 2 current representatives. I think they might have been city residents when we appointed them. I don't think either of them currently are. One person's term is expiring February 1st. The other, I think, still has 2 more years.
Okay, all right. So anyways, I think, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be asking her, and obviously that's pending her actually submitting her name, so.
Thank you. Mr. Finance Director.
I have nothing this evening.
Anything for our Finance Director, please? Madam Law Director.
I left you some little goodies. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On a personal note, I would like to say to President Engel and Councilman Lauterbach and Councilman Urschel, it has been my pleasure and my privilege to work for you and with you. I'm going to miss you guys.
Thank you. Madam Mayor.
A lot of what Danette just said, it has been an honor and a privilege to work with all 3 of you. I have learned a lot from each of you. I've learned different things from each of you and how you approach your leadership and how you approach the citizens in the ways that you serve. I'm very thankful for each of you. Mike, you have taken me under your wing a lot and allowed me to ask you a lot of questions and pick your brain, and I just want you to know that has not gone unnoticed or unappreciated. Thank you for the time that I have needed to get some counsel when it comes to leadership, and I really appreciate it. So thank you to each of you very much.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Wow, what do you say after 12 years? You know, it's been my great pleasure to serve the citizens of Xenia for 12 years. I'd like to be remembered as a public servant, not a politician. Politics can get kind of ugly at times, but a lot of people to thank. My wife, who is in the audience, has been with me through thick and thin. My son, my family, my friends, and again, it's been my great pleasure, and I'm not going anywhere. The good Lord willing, I'm not going anywhere. Thank you.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to echo on that same sentiment as the mayor and our law director. It's very humbling to be here, and it's an honor to serve with you guys. For the last 10 years, I've served with Councilman Lauterbach, and nine and a half, I think, with Mike. And Will, I've never seen a council member come on board and hit the ball running like you did, and I just want to thank you for that. And I know you have a lot of passion for our streets, and we'll continue to work on that. But you know, we have not always agreed. But one thing that we can agree on is our commitment to the city, and that we all love our community and our citizens. And so with that, I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year and thank our city staff and our first responders. It's a dangerous world we're living in, and but I'm very thankful every day for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Herschel.
So I've only got 29 hours left as a councilman. Sorry. So I have to limit it to that, right, Mike? Okay. So,
He still has the gavel.
it's lovely.
You still have life insurance.
That's what I do. So I want to tell two guys here, thank you from the bottom of my heart. First is Dale. I don't think I would have ever thought about doing this if it hadn't been for Dale. And you may not remember, we had a public hearing for the Spring Hill Park, and we had that over at our church. That was a few years ago. And really, at that point, you know, a lot of times you think about this whole separation of church and state, and you know, the two need to stay completely apart. And as we were having that hearing, there was a lady that represented a group that says we desperately need some space, but it needs to be indoor space, and we're working with some disabled kids, and we've got a special program. And is there any place in the city of Xenia that could help us with that? And Dale looked over and he says, well, I think this church has got a lot of space. I think they could help out with that. And so we did. But it really hit me then at that point, Dale, that partnership can happen there between our faith community and our municipality. And that really got some of my gears going. So anyways, I just want to tell you, appreciate that. It's been a real honor sitting next to you when we got put with our seats and stuff. Dale was probably the guy I knew the least of this whole group here. And I really appreciated listening to your comments and your input. And I'll just tell you, Dale has the heart for the folks of the city, and he takes time to talk to folks. And I just have, and I really appreciate. He and I've had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time working on some side issues on the budget and some other things too. And I just they got a lot of wisdom, and so I really appreciate that. And I want to give you a gift from my wife and I to you. And I know there's been a lot of Thursday evenings that you guys have spent apart. And so here's something for you to take your wife out on a Thursday evening and celebrate together. Does that sound okay? There you go. I thought you'd get approval there. So thanks.
I
Thanks so much,
appreciate
Dale.
it. I
Sure.
appreciate it.
And let's give Dale a hand with that. And then Mike won't let us say a word about what he's done for the city, but I want to let you know there's a whole other side of Mike. And I'm going to preference this with a little bit of background because Mike not only serves our city, he serves our nation. And I want you to understand the context of this. In World War II, we lost 23,000 aircraft in combat operations. And we were going against Nazi Germany basically had technologically superior aircraft and ground control systems. And if it hadn't just been for the volume of aircraft, we would have lost that war. We would have lost air superiority. And when you don't have air superiority, you don't have ground superiority. And we were fortunate to make it through. Now, it had nothing to do with the fact that we didn't have innovation design. We had literally thousands of different types of aircraft we threw into that. But we lost an amazing number of those things. And we lost 56,000 airmen in World War II. In the Korean War, we lost 3,000 aircraft. And a lot of folks at that time, let me tell you once again, if it hadn't been for the quantity of our aircraft, we would have lost air superiority there as well too. When we got to Vietnam, we lost an additional 3,000 aircraft in Vietnam. And that included a couple hundred bombers too. And once again, we were outgunned from a technology perspective. And you know, we had the quantity going on, but we didn't have the technology. And something changed after Vietnam, and what changed was intelligence. And up to that point, we'd been designing aircraft against what we assumed was the capabilities of our competitors. But in the 70s, there was a group that got started in the 60s and 70s called the Air Intelligence Center, where they said we've desperately got to get intelligence on the surface-to-air combat capabilities and the air-to-air combat capabilities of our foes, and we've got to design to that. And we'd never done that to that date. And starting at that point, we started designing a set of aircraft in the 1970s, many of which are still in combat operations. The F-16, the F-15, the A-10, the B-52s, the F-117s, the B-2s got all their genesis in the 1970s. And we started to include, at that time, threat information. And let me tell you, we have been, many of you may not understand this, we've been in constant combat operations since 1991, since the first Gulf War. There's not been a day when someone has not been attempting to shoot down one of our aircraft, either an air-to-air engagement or a surface-to-air engagement. And since 1999, in the last 3 decades, we haven't lost one aircraft in an air-to-air engagement. I want you to think about that. And since 2003, we haven't lost one aircraft from a surface-to-air engagement. And the reason why is the folks in our intelligence corps that have been collecting that information and passing that over to the design folks. And let me tell you, I worked for 34 years on aircraft design. And I was there at the genesis of all of our stealth aircraft and all of our reconnaissance aircraft and a bunch of other things we can't talk about in this room. But the thing that got us over the edge was us going across the street from the design side over to the National Air Intelligence Center, which it's called now. And any of you ever remember the old TV show Get Smart? Anybody under 40 doesn't know what I'm talking about. But for those of us that are a little bit older, yeah, you know, right? So the first part of Get Smart was this guy went through and these great big vaults opened up, you know, one after another after another. Well, that's how it was like going over to the National Air Intelligence Center. And let me tell you, many times I went over there representing our design community, and there was just a few of us out of the 25,000 that got to hear what was going on. And we would go through vault after vault after vault, and we'd get put in this tiny room, and they would bring in a couple of their experts, and the guy who was always ushering in their experts was Mike. And Mike was the guy there to give us the information that we desperately needed to take back and design our aircraft so we don't lose aircraft anymore, and so that we have dominant air superiority across the globe right now. And I credit the folks from our intelligence community. And I remember last time I was over there with General McMurray, who's the current commander, and he said, he looked at Mike and his guys, he said, every time I come over here, it's always bad news. But you know what, and it was, because basically they would tell us, you guys thought you had these aircraft designed correctly, but they're not gonna meet the current threats, the projected threats. You're gonna have to go back and redesign. But much better for us to redesign prior to putting our airmen in harm's way. Because when we did that, they always came out alive at that point. So I just want to let you know, Mike is a national asset to our country. And he'll never say anything about that. And it's been an honor for us to have somebody like, now, Mike could have said, and the load he carries, because if he gives us the wrong intelligence or late intelligence, I'll tell you, the costs are in the billions of dollars to our nation and could be in the hundreds of lives or the hundreds of aircraft lost. And it would have been very easy for Mike to say, I'm doing more than anything that's required for service to my country or our community. And I'll tell you, when I first came in to pray at one of these committee meetings, council meetings, and I saw Mike sitting up there, I said, are you an idiot? You don't have time for this. What are you doing, knowing what you do during the day? So I just want to tell you, Mike, for you to do what you've done in service to us during your day job, and then to take the time to honor this community by serving here, I'm astounded by that, okay? And so, one thing, Mike and I are Cold War warriors, okay? And some of you are under 40 don't even know what that means, okay? But that's when we used to have the old evil empire of the Soviet Union. And let me tell you, we didn't know if we were going to win that war at all. And there was a date and time when we know we'd won, and that's when the Berlin Wall came down, and it quickly collapsed. But let me tell you, it didn't collapse because just the protesters at that time, because there's been hundreds of protesters that were shot and killed and buried and nobody knew about them. It collapsed because our technological superiority put the Soviet Union's industry in the dirt. They could not compete against us, and they knew it. And part of the reason for that is guys like Mike. And so, Mike, I wanted to give you, here's a chunk of the Berlin Wall right here. I want you guys to see this. And I wanted you to have this as a remembrance of the victories that we've had, and the service that you've done to our nation. And I put a saying in here from Curtis LeMay, who's all about air superiority. He says, if we maintain our faith in God, love of freedom, and superior global air power, which we got, then the future looks good. And I think the future looks great from that perspective. So thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you very
There
much.
you go. I've got a present in here for your wife as well for one of those Thursday nights. All right. Last comment. I've been a part of a lot of what we call in the Department of Defense high-powered teams. Okay, and this is where we get to select the financial folks, the program managers, and the workers, and we go do hard things. And I just want to tell the staff, you guys stack up against any high-powered team I've operated with in the last 35 years. I've been so impressed by the quality of the folks, the dedication, and as an ignorant person coming on the city council, I've spent hours with Ryan and hours with Danette and hours with Jared. And the professionalism and the willingness to work the issues and set aside, people, taking pokes at you and doing those kind of things, but work hard for the city of Xenia. I just want to tell the staff kudos. And I'm not worried about getting off council because I know you guys are here. I know the quality of the folks we have on the council, the quality of folks coming on board, and I think there are bright days for the city of Xenia. So I just want to tell you folks, thanks so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Dean.
I'm not really sure I'm going to follow that up, but thank you. I just want to say a few things about the outgoing councilman, echo everything that everybody else said, and add a few things as well. Mr. Lauterbach, I appreciate all of your service. You've always shown the heart and guts to go against the grain, even when it's not popular, and sometimes that's very tough, but you've done it regardless. Mr. Urschel, you've come in and learned really fast, probably re-educated yourself in a lot of things, and that's pretty tough, but you hit the ground running, as Mr. Smith said, and I was glad to have you. And Mr. Engel, I appreciate your time as president, even though we may have not always agreed on every issue, but you always gave everyone their fair say and let everyone speak their mind without silencing or trying to squash debate, so I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Vice President.
I have to echo the sentiment started by the law director and that has been echoed by all my fellow members of council. I sat here and debated to myself whether or not I would say it, but I thought that it was what we had gone through early in 15 and late in 14. I thought that I just wasn't going to like that Lauterbach guy at all. And that we were going to have fights up one side and down the other. But I met his wife actually before I met him. She and I were at the rod shop one day, and I met her, and when I found out how wonderful she was, and I had a different perspective on what on this Louderback guy. And I want to say, Dale, that I have appreciated you. I have learned so much from you, and it's just been a real privilege working with you. And I can't. Wes has already said it about about Will. The only person that I think might compare maybe a little bit with the work that you've expended in this job is Dale or Mike because of his role. But you have just been phenomenal in how you've hit the ground running, and the stuff that you've learned, the stuff that you've educated me to. I had 2 years in when you got here, or 3 years in actually when you got here, and you taught me so much by virtue of the work that you've done. And I just thank God for you, Mike and Lynn, and we came on as a team with you and the mayor, and who else was on the ticket that time?
It's the three of us.
Just the three of us. And I certainly thank you because I feel like my presence on the ticket with you was helpful to my being here in the first place. And so I will appreciate you and Will and Dale, and thank God for you, and I'm sure the city of Xenia thanks you as well. And I wish you the very best in whatever you do, whatever you do from here on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Happy New Year to everybody out there. This is the last time we gather in 19, and we enter a new decade in our next meeting. So,
New beginnings. Well, for my part, I had decided I wouldn't say much because I'm sure that lots of people would have lots of things to say. First off, my sincere appreciation to the appointed officials. Wish Brent would have been here this evening as well to hear it, but I have tremendously appreciated each one of you. I think our city is on a marked uptick with your vitality, investment, and leadership in this city, and I can't say enough. You are here for a place. We are all grateful for it. The council relies on you. The citizens rely on you, and you go unappreciated in many cases. I appreciate you very much. I also appreciate every member of the city writ large that is staffed through the city of Xenia. Our firefighters, police workers, public service, all our administrative personnel. I am convinced that we have an exemplary staff. We are a small city, but we do great things with a relatively modest budget and a tremendous amount of dedication by our employees. You leading the way and them making it happen. And I greatly appreciate that. I've appreciated my time on council, roughly 11-ish years over the time served in 2 terms. I will miss it in some ways. In other ways, as my wife reminds me, I have Thursdays off.
That's right.
And she greatly appreciates that. One thing I did want to leave with is, some people have said, you gave this to me, or you provided this kind of leadership. I'd like to take just a moment, if I may, and recognize 2 people who cannot be here. Pat Felton, Phyllis Penowit. Both former mayors and former councilwomen for the city of Xenia. If not for Phyllis and Pat, I would not be here from their motivation to come and join. And they said to me, you have something to contribute and you're a member of the community, you should do it. That has been the entirety of my motivation for my time on council. And unfortunately, both Pat and Phyllis have passed away, not too distant past, but I remember them often, and I, just for the record here and to our permanent record, thank them deeply for the advice, counsel, and motivation that they gave to me to come and join the council and contribute. It has been a good time. And again, thank you to all my colleagues. And like, was it General MacArthur said,
Yep,
should just fade away?
right, right.
Old politicians should just
fade away.
Fade away.
Right.
Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
I'll second that. Roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Hi.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.